All right, Andre. Sorry that took so long for me to get this to you. I had some problem with my laptop microphone thing. The recording sound quality sucked. So I had to go buy a new headset. Yeah, and so that's why my video didn't show up. Uh, uh, Last night at 10:30ish or so, because yeah, stupid microphone. Anyways, let's move on. Question one and two. Well, question two, one rather, was make sure I'm only multiplying the world matrix outside on the CPU, which I am for question one. So I'm only, well, whoops, I should have gone into here. So my matrix multiplication for the world is done inside on the CPU before I send it to the shader itself. And then also another optimization I did was I only sent the view and projection matrix once for the individual shader. So that only gets calculated once, which is why I can use it for the multiple objects. This is a combined question one and two, by the way. And so view projection matrix is calculated once. That is used for all the subsequent world calculations for the different objects I have on the scene. So each of these had their own world matrix, but the world matrix themselves, the world matrix is calculated once using the view and, or excuse me, the world matrix is calculated per each object, but it's only using the view projection matrix only calculated once per frame. Okay, so question three. Textured pyramid, repeated textured pyramid. So have that working. That is not this guy. Boop. That is this guy. And so repeated textures, like I have 18 first instead of 5. And then really it was just making sure that I knew which triangle was what when I was texturing the object and hard coding the UVs. That is seen, well, not really seen, but we're using, oh yeah, I tried to make the shader class when I was doing question three. I didn't realize I was actually question five, and I ran into some issues because, well, I'll get into that when I talk about question five. But yeah, using the shader stuff from your example, the shader class from your example, so everything is like in a demo, and then I am creating, whoops, and then I'm creating the repeated texture pyramid, and everything is the same except I'm doing all this hard-coded math inside here instead of the shader object, which I will get into later. Question 4 and 5, I also combined into my video thing so that I don't waste more time for you. And so inside 4 and 5, I have my texture shader, which in this, for this, I can't move my video screen to show you the rest of the code. All right, whatever. All right, so inside of my shader class, I had the set to context, or excuse me, the set texture resource and sampler, which is basically taking the input texture and setting the context. So that way that the shader knows at whenever this is called, that's the texture it's using for this specific shader at this time. So we can switch textures out on the draw stage every single time we're doing this. I'm also, and this is where I ran into the problems when I was creating the my shader class earlier. I'm doing the world matrix optimization again, calculating on the CPU so that my texture code, or excuse me, my texture shader isn't is only multiplying the world matrix by each of the vertices instead of calculating the matrices here inside the shader. The reason why I ran into a problem is because this was set to register B1 because it still had the camera data in here from earlier from your copy of the texture HLSL file. And so when I finally realized that, my shader class worked the way I originally created it, minus your requirement for having this texture and resource sampling. I didn't even think about that. I had originally envisioned having a texture shader class for every texture, but this makes far more sense, especially when you can hot swap textures on the fly using the same texture shader. So yeah, that's nice. That means I would only have a texture shader for different types of textures like normal maps, bump maps, or diffuse textures, stuff like that. Okay, let's see. What did I do here? Oh, this is the cube, right? So both I use this for both 4 and 5. So the this takes the place of 4 as well. So individually having the six-sided face texture 4 cube. Gosh, words, sorry. And so yeah, using that, that was a little bit more time consuming, making sure that I did the math correctly. And then I, which is fun. I wanted to talk about this just because I had fun doing the actual texturing. It was a little bit of a mind trip getting my head in the space of the object in the world, and so it took me a while to figure out which mapping I was using because I was mapping my cube based off the texture. So everything I had was actually coming up sideways based on the way that the texture is laid out, or the actual image is laid out. And when I realized that I was trying to when I was supposed to be calculating UVs based on the model in space instead of based on the texture and how that would wrap on the model not in space, things became a lot easier and it was smooth. So I basically just I worked on back until I figured out what the back base was supposed to look like, and then my aha moment came and I was able to finish the rest of it pretty easily. Yeah. Okay. That is it. This is late, so I didn't really expect to take this long as I did, but I did. Sorry. And yeah, I will talk to you next week, Andre. Okay, thanks.